Welcome to Windows on the World Extra, our show on infiltration and the paid agents who discredit and attack researchers in alternative media seem to have had some effect. The YouTube video of it attracted some interesting and predictable comments. There has also been a further attack on myself on the TPV forum. This is very timely, as the documents have been released on how government is paying people to attack anyone not spouting state propaganda. As we also revealed, the fake stories are being peddled to discredit and entrap researchers and groups who are capable of real investigative journalism. I'm with David Shaler, ex-MI5 officer and whistleblower, to discuss this and what we can do about it. And it's a training guide for GCHQ and NSA agents on infiltrating and disrupting alternative media online. The 4 Ds are deny, disrupt, degrade and deceive. This is known as online covert action. Something appeared on the TPV forum a few days ago, and we were already attacked by these people. And it's very interesting as an example of exactly what they're talking about in the document. These people don't seem to have any imagination. They just seem to work to a rule book. So in other words, most of it is reversal, isn't it?
Yeah, no, well, the fact you say they work to a rule book is that's how the opposition work. They almost literally have a handbook about how they deal with each aspect of protest or rebellion or whatever else. And they don't like departing from the rules because they work in a very hierarchical structure. And if you lower down the structure and you depart from the rules, you're going to get in trouble with the people higher up, even if what you do works, you know. So they are following the rule book, and the rule book says, yes, as you say, the 4 Ds. And of those, you know, say, this is what it's all about, you know. Chapman Pincher wrote a book about intelligence services called Their Trade is Treachery. And this is what the intelligence service is about. They're not about protecting you, because the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq have put us at far greater risk, put our lives at far greater risk of attack from extremists. But what they have been doing all that time is trying to put out misinformation about things like 9/11, for example. So before we talk about this case, I will say that one of the person who was involved with this faction we know about was also involved in removing me from 9/11 when we were having enormous success in up until early 2007. Because in many cases they work on people's small-mindedness rather than people actually being prey to the operation themselves, being party to that, yeah?
That's absolutely correct.
So, so people coming to me, attacking me, shouting at me, screaming at me, including, I say, this person in the 9/11 Truth Movement. Now, at that point, the 9/11 Truth Movement split. And after that, it fell apart. It never had the same profile, because at that point we were getting on things like the Jeremy Vine Show, Sky News, and the Stephen Walsh Show. And these are all things with millions of viewers, basically. So that was all cut out. And I even told these people what was going on, and they still did it. So let's be clear about this. A lot of this misinformation relies upon what I call the munchkin mentality, those 20 to 40% of people out there who act like the herd, can't think for themselves. And I've seen those people when their eyes go. It's frightening, because they lose a connection with their soul, basically. And that one thing explains how we have communist Russia, Nazi Germany. Every atrocity in the world is carried out by groups who've lost their connection to their conscience. So that's what they're using, and they do have that intrinsic understanding of human psychology, because these people who belong to a group can't think for themselves. They will also blacken your character by association, and that's what they're trying to do here with this. They're trying to accuse us of being racists.
Well,
can I just say, Mark, I totally and utterly repudiate that. I have never, ever been a racist, and people will know that by standing up for the truth about 9/11 and 7/7, we are pointing out the racism of the other side, the racism of a government that blames Muslims for the attack on 7/7 without any sort of proper formal inquiry, basically.
They played the race card about 2 years ago, and a lot of people jumped to my defence, which was nice, but really this stuff shouldn't have got this far. The point is that we've got very lazy people out there, and people who are working for the government getting paid a lot of money to discredit people like me. All I'm doing is presenting a show where I'm trying to help people from getting houses taken off them, stuff like that. Now, what's very insidious about this is the fact that they've kept on going on me and people around me. Now, I don't consider myself to be a threat to the national security. These people, in my opinion, are total traitors to this country and everything that Britain is about.
No, absolutely. But the problem is they use a very perverse definition of national security. They're using security in the sense of a collateral for a loan. So they're talking about the financing of the country. Now, you can argue virtually anything we do, because it exposes this, is therefore not in the interests of national security in that sense. However, if we were to talk about the broader interests of the nation, of course this works in the interest of the nation. It's not in the interest of any country to live under a regime that puts out propaganda and lies. It's not in the interest of any country for a government government to go around oppressing the rights, not just of its own people, but obviously people halfway across the world where we've invaded countries. So we are standing up for what's called the common good under the common law, and that's a phrase that can't be perverted. National interest, national security have different meanings in Babylon, but we stand up for the common good, essentially. And I think it's enormously suspicious this is happening now, Mark, because, as you know, people's voice is starting to take off. Your show's starting to take off. I'm returning to having more of a public profile. So this is an attempt to try and cut us off at the pass and stop that happening, basically. Now, obviously, we rely upon the good sense of people out there. Of course, the 20 or 40% who are munchkins will believe this, but they'll believe us when we go and talk to them. They'll change their minds just like that. And I don't believe there's anybody out there who can think for themselves that will believe these allegations are in any way credible.
No, they haven't, and that's the good thing in a way. I think this is all kicked off after our infiltration special, because what the comments that were put underneath that on the YouTube video are very, very interesting. If you go to the People's Voice and have a look on the Windows on the World infiltration special, underneath you get every single technique that's in these documents. So all this I did was post a link to the documents and said, for anyone who wonders what these rather obnoxious and strange comments are, take a look at this. And all they have to do is click on the document and they'll see, oh, this is the handbook, and I think that's what they don't like. That's why they've had to counterattack. So they've now said, our website was brought down coincidentally. It's great. It goes, TPV fans. TPV fans, yeah? This is on the TPV forum. Who do you think Mucky Windows really works for? It says, Tony Z and Miss Seven visited TPV and discussed her story with David Icke, Liz and other members who had a very warm welcome, which is totally untrue. Yeah. Tony Z posted a copy of his complimentary email on his website thanking TPV volunteers and staff. However, the following day, Mark Windows in capital letters. This is what they do, isn't it? They shout, and then they'll put underneath something like racist or fascist, so people just see the three things and they go, oh, Mark Windows, racist, fascist.
Yeah, it's a form of kind of neuro-linguistic programming.
Oh, it's totally
very basic, but nevertheless, that's what they're doing. They try to associate your name with something like racism or whatever, But it's a classic technique.
Yeah, however, the following day, Mark Windows posted a very negative account of their visit on his Facebook page, even though he had never witnessed or been present at the meeting. Well, obviously I didn't do that. And then it says the Seven story was never aired on TPV, and Mark Windows quickly removed his deflammatory comments. It's a new word.
No, the new word there.
They've got a new word out there in GCHQ. It's called deflammatory. Watch out for that one.
Obviously a combination of inflammatory and defamatory.
And it's got, but not before they were copied for evidence, little smiley. Okay? So he says, curiously, the synchronicity.com website where Tony Z had posted details of the TPV visit and Miss Seven's story with Tony Farrell videos was viciously hacked and taken offline. Was this just a strange coincidence or evidence of deliberate verbal attacks and intentional hacking by despicable New World Order agents?
So what, are they accusing us of hacking them or what? I mean,
I think they took their site down to us,
they either took it down, or it's a classic thing, isn't it? The other side will do that. There's nothing better when we were doing the IRA for one of our agents to spend a bit of time in prison to give him credibility with the IRA. And it's a bit like that. You subject to a denial of service attack. People who don't really think things through think, oh, they must be on our side because they've been hacked. But it's just a veneer, basically. It's a completely false flag operation.
Yeah, who do you think this scumbag Mucky Windows really works for? And then it's got the link to this story that they've written, which is, it goes on for pages, and it's allegedly...
Yeah, so let's be clear about what Charles Seven is saying, this woman. She is actually saying, essentially, that 7/7 was carried out to cover up the fact that the BBC stole Strictly Come Dancing off her, and she was going to be able to successfily sue them for that.
Yes, plus many other shows that were written before she was born. Yeah. She is actually libelling top lawyers in this country, whose speciality at law is internet libel. So she's libel people on the internet and getting us to trying to coerce us to libel people whose speciality at law is internet libel. It seems to be that there's a whole network of these people working together, but there's not that many of them. And they're turning up at everything from gatherings on UFOs to try and infiltrate people who are fighting the CSA.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It doesn't need many of them, that's the point, because I say, you go into any group and you'll find small-minded people. I don't care what that group is, they'll always attract small-minded people. That's the nature of group consciousness. So it doesn't need many of them to create massive disruption. As I say, with that 9/11 thing, when I fell out with the 9/11 truth movement, I don't think that all those people involved with that were working for the other side. Yeah. I think there was one or two people that were working for the other side who were stoking it up, but they relied upon the stupidity of other people. And when I say stupidity, I'm not talking about people who are uneducated here. What I'm talking about is a particular type of, quite often, academic stupidity. I mean, Annie got involved in, taking action against me in 9/11, and she's got a degree from Cambridge University. But that just shows you basically...
That's not necessarily a sign of intelligence.
That's what I mean, yeah, no, that's people being trained to think in a particular way by public school and Oxbridge, but they're not free thinkers, but they think they're free thinkers. They don't know they've been
Senses of great mind control, actually. I've known quite a few of them, but they make very good politicians.
Yeah. And can I just tell you a story as well about something similar to this?
We've got about 4 minutes left.
All right, because a quick straw man thing is this happened to me when I was involved in looking at the Diana thing in Mohammed Al Fayed. They did something very similar there, where they offered to sell him fake documents for $20 million. I was able to show those documents were fakes, but that's another technique they use. They'll give you some information that looks reliable, you go make a big song and dance about it, and then suddenly they come in and say, no, this is all refutable, we can prove that, this is all nonsense. So when any actually good information does emerge, they then point back to that and say, oh, this is just more rubbish, basically. So that's another part of this technique they're using in terms of disrupting and deceiving.
The techniques are just the same everywhere. They just use the handbook, which is great, and anyone can look at this. It's a GCHQ document. It's on 21st Century Wire, and it's called Training Guide for GCHQ NSA Agents Infiltrating and Disrupting Alternative Media Online. There it is. Really worth looking that up.
Yeah. Now, in this case, clearly Charles Seven cannot have all her marbles. She's clearly got some psychological problems if she thinks 7/7 was carried out to shut her up, essentially. So what we have here is the other side using somebody who is suffering mental illness to try and advance their operation. Now, how sick does that get? What sort of morals have you got when you use somebody who is mentally impaired just to be able to put forward your ideas and split up somebody who's telling the truth? That's how sick it is. She is a vulnerable woman who needs protection, not to be exploited by nasty people from the 9/11 Truth Movement and so on, who are using her for their own ends to try and disrupt what we're doing. And then the timing is absolutely impeccable, because I know that the station is at the moment asking for more donations. This is coming out to go out to people and say, look, this station's full of racists, don't give them any money. And that's, again, you cut people off at source and they've got no money.
This happens because everybody in this country now is at risk. If you've got a small business, and you may have problems with the local council, they'll do this to you. I know people it's happened to. So it's not just people who are trying to, investigative journalists like us. It's people in business trying to make a living. Their own government is sending people in to destroy them. It's an absolute disgrace.
That's what I said to people years ago about invasions of privacy. I say, you may not actually have thought out the implications of this, but one day you'll get into conflict perhaps with the local council. And they will use embarrassing private information that they've gleaned from elsewhere to try and discredit you in any court case or discredit you publicly.
Which is exactly what they're doing. So they're doing this here. We're going to have to wrap now. But to all those who want to bring down the people's voice and attack investigative journalists like myself, we'll be keeping watching those watching us, watching the people's voice. Thanks for listening.